Sometimes, the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And now, your host, Ben Adelberg.
Welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is a bonus episode. It's episode 74. Before we get to the 10-time PGA Tour winner and 2013 Regions Tradition champion, David Frost, I just wanted to touch base on a couple things before we get going with this bonus episode. As a reminder, on Tuesday, I will be recording an interview with the 2018 United States Mid-Amateur champion, Kevin O'Connell. For those of you that might not know his entire story, Kevin was almost set to turn pro at Euro Tour Q School, but that's when the U.S. Mid-Am at Charlotte Country Club kind of got in the way. He played well, made match play, and ended up winning the championship. So, of course, he played in the Masters this year. He's heading to Pebble Beach to play the U.S. Open, and after that, well, we're going to find out more about that on Tuesday. This is your chance to get involved and participate with the interview. So if you have some questions for Kevin, and they could be about anything, the U.S. Mid-Am, playing in the Masters, does he have a swing coach? What does he eat on the golf course? Anything at all. Submit your question via email or DM it to us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. All the information that you need to reach us is available in the show notes of this episode. You know by now that we like rewarding listener participation. The USGA and Seamus Golf have chipped in a U.S. Open Pebble Beach bag tag. It's engraved. It is awesome. That is going to go out to one of the lucky winners that submit a question. I'll also kick in some back of the range swag as well. Just another way to get you guys involved and participating with the evolution, so to speak, of this podcast. We've been getting tons of support since this podcast launched, and on Friday we received a very large vote of support from the USGA. If you follow them on Instagram, and roughly 260,000 people do, you might have noticed that they posted some of our audiograms on their page. So the audiograms are those 60-second teasers of our episodes that have the wavy line in them. It's an audiogram. You know what it is. Anyway, well, they posted a few of them on their own Instagram page featuring some of the previous USGA champions that have appeared as guests on the Back of the Range. So very cool of them to do that. If you haven't listened to some of these episodes, get back in Apple Podcasts and Spotify and chase those episodes down. They're not hard to find. We have U.S. Mid-Am champions like Stuart Hagestad, Matt Parziale, Shannon Johnson, and yes, our buddy Joe Buck was featured as well. So go check those out, and thank you again to the USGA for supporting the Back of the Range. Our special guest on this bonus episode is David Frost. He has won all over the world: PGA Tour, Sunshine Tour, European Tour, Champions Tour. He has traveled the globe and won all over the place and is still playing some amazing golf out on the Champions Tour. So I met David at the Oasis Championship in Boca Raton. A buddy of mine actually went to one of his wine events and kind of put us together. And he actually invited me on the range after he got done with his afternoon round. And he's like, yeah, come on the range and watch me hit a few balls. And it was really cool. I thought, wow, here I am. I'm the host of the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I'm on the range at a Champions Tour event. So while I'm just standing there and soaking it in and thinking how cool I was, David says, "So Ben, what do you see?" I'm like, what do I see? What do I see about what? So at that moment, his caddy is staring at me. Frosty is staring at me. I feel that everyone within earshot is staring at me. What do I see in your swing? This guy won the World Series of Golf in 1989 in a playoff against Ben Crenshaw, and you want to know what I think about your golf swing? So what turned out to be a lot of fun turned into a little bit of terror, because what am I going to tell Frosty that makes me look somewhat intelligent about the golf swing? Well, I said a couple things, and he kind of nodded at me and agreed, and luckily let me off the hook. I still don't remember what I said. I just said something very plain just to get me out of there. But still, he couldn't have been nicer. I didn't feel like I was babbling too much, even though I'm sure I was. Well, when we were finally able to record this episode, he was out on the road preparing for the next event on the Champions Tour. We spoke about his unique start in the game in South Africa, making it onto the PGA Tour, and yes, his side hustle, so to speak, Frost Wines. If you shop at Trader Joe's, you could and should pick up a bottle. So cheers to you, Frosty. Thanks for making time to join me here at the Back of the Range.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Yeah, I've literally just got back from the back of the range.
I know you are quite the tinkerer. So, well, let's dive into exactly what you were doing. You're out in Arizona. You're playing in the Cologuard Classic out at a Tucson National Resort. So, getting ready for kind of the Arizona West Coast swing, so to speak, of the Champions Tour. So, what were you just working on out at the back of the range?
So I've gone this week to a little softer shaft. I've gone from what I used to play X1 soft step, meaning the X100 True Temper Dynamic Gold. X100, when we soft step it, I take the 2-iron, I put it in the 3-iron head. I take the 3-iron, I put it in the 4-iron head. Take the 4-iron shaft and put it in the 5-iron head, and so forth. So you're playing X1s, but they're a little softer than the typical. Okay. I felt the last 2 weeks, I didn't quite, I feel too boardy. It still feels too boardy for me. So I spoke to the True Temper rep at the Honda Classic on Monday.
Okay.
And I told him I want to try the S400s. So he asked me what I was trying to accomplish, and I said, I'm just trying to get a little more feel. So he said, why don't you try and soft step an S400? So I'm trying the S400s, and I felt really good in my pro-am yesterday. And then today is Thursday. We start tomorrow. I took a little nap, woke up. The driving range is about 40 yards from my hotel room window.
Nice.
And couldn't resist just to go and fine-tune it again. So that's what I was doing. Just want to maintain that little feeling down the bottom, So I don't want to try and work so hard to hit the golf ball, but it's okay if I hit it hard and I get good results.
Of course.
I don't want to hit it hard and I have that body result like I've been getting. So quite excited trying this.
Nice. So you're looking for a little more feel, and when you say boardy, you mean just kind of a very stiff, not a lot of like physical feedback on the shot.
Yeah, it almost feels like I'm hitting the ball on the bottom groove of the club. And
right.
It's not getting to the second and third and fourth groove,
See, now this is very interesting because this is not coming from a guy that's trying to necessarily find something to jumpstart his career or find a way to keep his job. This is coming from a guy that's won over 30 times all over the world, who is entering, I guess it would be, about your 10th year on the Champions Tour. When I met you at the Oasis Championship in Boca, it was a lot of the same. Seems like you're constantly searching. Is that something that you would attribute your success to, that you're always trying to get better?
Yes, if it's not about the golf swing, that it might be something that's that you're stuck with. It's either the swing or the club. So I take a longer time to blame the clubs and rather work on my swing and blame my swing.
Nice.
But sometimes you get to a point where maybe I can just try something with the clubs. So I'm always fiddling, tinkering. But you're trying to find that little feeling, that little golden feeling,
Sure. So not to put you on the spot, but you've been tinkering now. You've been a professional since, I guess, 1981 is when you turned pro. Looking back of all the different clubs and shafts and grips and stances, is there anything that sticks out that you just think to yourself, man, Frosty, what the hell were you thinking trying to do something like that?
No, but what else that I like to think back on about is, my sort of golden years was between, say, where I felt the clubs were doing a good job for me was when I was using Hogan irons and the Apex 5 shaft.
Yeah.
From, say, 86 to 95, that's when I won all my tournaments. And then Hogan went out of business and they stopped making the Apex 5 shaft. That's when I started getting more into the True Temper. And, I don't want to say since then, but since then I haven't had that consistent strike on the ball like when I had with my Hogans.
When you were winning, I mean, you're talking about from like 1988 to 97, where you won 10 times on the PGA Tour. At that time, you mentioned Hogan. Did you ever get a chance to meet Hogan and talk to him about shafts and about his equipment? I know he was very proud of his equipment company. Did you have a chance to visit with Mr. Hogan at all?
So, yeah, every year during the Colonial, he would put on a dinner for the Hogan staff players at Shady Oaks.
Yep, Fort Worth.
He would tell us a few stories there. We weren't really able to get into his head about, clubs and shafts and things right there. But I did have an opportunity to spend some time with him in his office.
Oh, wow.
And also hitting balls with him at Shady Oaks one day. But he didn't talk much. He just, I was out of the range purposely trying to, pick his brain one day.
Sure.
And he said, I walked over and I said, do you mind if I watch you hit a few balls? And he said, sure. And then he looked at me and said, what club are you hitting? I said, I'm hitting a 2-iron. He said, well, take my 2-iron at the bag and go and hit it. So I went to his bag and there was a brand new 2-iron in the wrapper still, and proceeded over to my little spot about 20 yards away. And first 2-iron I hit, I cold shanked it. Second 2-iron, I cold shanked it again. And then I stared down at the hosel of the club and noticed how stiff it was, where the last step down was only about 3 or 4 inches from the hosel, and figured out, well, that's why I shanked it, because it's so stiff down there.
Right, it's not releasing.
But the other reason was that his clubs were extremely flat, so the toe the toe of the club was really drooped down a lot. So it was a very flat, angled club, which stopped him from hitting the ball to the left,
right,
and always promoted a fade. But that's also why I shanked it, because the toe caught the ground and the hosel led, and I hit the ball out the shank of the club. So the combination of the stiff shaft and the flat lie. But then by the third shot, I figured out what I needed to do. But
right.
I also knew out the corner of my ear that I'm sure you heard me shank it.
Oh, of course. I mean, we've all been there and shanked a shot, whether it's on on the driving range or playing with buddies. But you had to shank 2 in a row in front of Mr. Hogan. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, it's okay. The moment was worth living for.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a hell of a story. I mean, you got to hit balls with Mr. Hogan. Whenever I start these episodes, I always like to ask people how they got into the game. A lot of people listening will know your career. They know you're from South Africa. You've played all over the world for many, many years and had tremendous success. But I don't know if I've ever heard of 2 jobs someone had before they turned professional. So before we start into how you really got into playing golf, what were some of the jobs that you had before you became David Frosty, professional golfer?
Well, out of school, in school you have, odd jobs,
sure,
working in a restaurant, that kind of thing, but that's for pocket money.
Yeah, that's just
growing up, I knew I had to serve 2 years in the military in South Africa.
Okay.
So it was inevitable that I would be drafted in the Army, Navy, Air Force, or the police force. And so I ended up doing 2.5 years in the police force as my national service. So there we did 6 months in the police academy from April 78 till September 78. So you were kind of stuck in there. You couldn't get out, and you just you did all your drilling.
Yeah, they got you.
Yeah, and I used to. I was able to sneak out a little bit to the golf course. The brigadier that was in charge of the academy on a Tuesday and Thursday we had sport parade, as they called it, and he made Frost come out to his office and escort him down to the golf course where we'd play 9 holes. And if I didn't bring my roommate, my bungalow mate, who was about 6'5", a hamburger from the clubhouse, I was going to pay a steep price.
Uh-huh.
So that was the only time I got out of the academy. But then after that, I got posted out, and I walked the beat and worked shifts and through the city of Cape Town. We just did what policemen do.
Of course.
And then that lasted for 2.5 years. I saw an opportunity after that also to play a lot of golf. and decided in this next career would be to be a cigarette rep, where I worked on the promotion team, and we actually promoted golf, hang gliding, fishing. So we do that on weekends, and during the weekdays I was able to play my golf, and those weekends we didn't have promotional events, I was able to play my league golf with my golf club. And so I developed a nice amateur career through that in Johannesburg. It was a great place to play golf, 6,000 feet above sea level. The weather's always great. So my amateur career really got going while I lived in Johannesburg in in 80, 81.
Sure.
And those were my two jobs.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that. When you had those, see, you had the job, you were on the police force, but we're talking late 70s, early 80s, and then you try and turn professional. It's obviously a much different circumstance than it is now. We have such great technology these days with information and multiple different tours and challenge tours. But you're in South Africa. It's I think it's about a 16-hour flight to get to New York from Johannesburg. How did you actually plot your way to playing professionally? Did you have a strategy in mind of which tours you wanted to try? What was kind of your strategy to becoming a professional?
Well, first of all, we have the luxury of what we call the Sunshine Tour in South Africa.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about the Sunshine Tour. And, we have great weather. We have great golf courses. It's no fluke that we have had such great golfers come out of South Africa, in the last, say, 80 years.
Yeah.
The courses and the tournaments and the experience that it offers you is definitely something that can carry you to the heights that you need to achieve as a professional golfer. So I obviously wanted to make my mark on the local tour first to see whether I was good enough. I didn't even think I was good enough.
Okay.
I was good amateur. I made my I got my national colors for South Africa. And I thought, let me give it a shot. I play the Sunshine Tour, which runs from December to January every year. So we call it like the 81, 82 circuit,
right,
and then the 82, 83 circuit. So I turned pro in my 81, 82 circuit and finished 16th on the money list. And then, because when you're in the military, you go into the reserve list for 5 years after you finished your 2 years. So my next year, I had to do another 30-day camp at my local police station. So I couldn't wander too far off.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. Okay.
So then 82, I didn't really have anywhere to play. I came over to Orlando, Florida, where I spent 5 weeks in April with Phil Ritson.
Yeah. And
played some mini tours, played JC Goosey there. And then made my way from there with Phil Ritson's stepson, Mark McCann. We went over to Four Spot or to Monday in Europe. So I had to be back in South Africa by September for this camp,
Right.
So I played in Europe for 3 months, and Monday qualified a few places. And, I think I finished ninth in the German Open in Stuttgart, and then joined the 82, 83 circuit in South Africa and won the second tournament of the season, which was in December of 82. I won, beat Nicky Price at the tournament in Sun City. So kind of felt that, I was making headway in this professional endeavor that I was trying to pursue. So in the 82, 83 circuit, I managed to finish second on the money list in South Africa, which gave me an exemption into Europe. It gave me my card in Europe. The top two on the South African money list got a tour card in Europe. So I used that and started my 83 season in Europe as a exempt player.
Right. Okay.
Finished 32nd that year, but finishing second in South Africa also gave me the opportunity in the U.S. It qualified you for the World Series of Golf in Akron, Ohio, which is always known to the local or to the people nowadays as the Bridgestone.
Right.
So I came over in '83 for the Bridgestone, and that was my first taste of American golf in '83. And then, went back to Europe. I finished like 32nd on the money list. '84, I started in Europe again. In April, we normally started. That's when the season started in Madrid. And played the '84 season there. Midway through the season, Nick Price had been very successful here, Dennis Watson. So I figured, well, if they can play here, why don't I give it a shot?
So the Sunshine Tour really gave you kind of your map, so to speak, on how to get to the European Tour, how to get to the U.S. Tour. But most of your success, most of your wins occurred on the PGA Tour in the United States. Was there anything specific about the PGA Tour that kind of fit your game? Was it the style of courses? Can you maybe pinpoint anything that really made you feel comfortable where you can compete on the arguably the biggest tour in the world?
No, I never thought I had I really had a strength in the game that made me successful over here. I didn't, I'm not a high ball hitter.
Right.
I don't hit par fives into. So there was nothing really that made me, be someone to be spoken about that. Oh boy, here comes a Chevy by a steroid or something. I just never had anything like that. I wouldn't say I had any of those characteristics to make me a great player, but I didn't have too many weaknesses, if I can say that.
Right. Well, obviously one of your strengths is your putting and is your short game. I'm sure you're aware that you still do hold the record for the least amount of putts in a 72-hole PGA Tour event with an absolutely mind-boggling 92. That's averaging 26 putts a round. You did that back in 2005 at the Heritage.
No, that's 23 putts around.
23. You're right. 23 putts around. Yeah. Well, math was not really my best. So putting and short game obviously is something that you continue to work on. It's obviously something that amateurs need to work on, but they don't do that very much. They like to go out under the driving range and hit their driver and hit it as far as they can. I can't fathom the number of pro-ams you've played in, but what are some of the things that you talk to your pro-am partners about on how they can improve their game? What are the questions maybe that they come to you with?
Well, get back to the chipping and putting. I grew up in Cape Town, and it's like San Francisco. It's windy, it's rainy, temperatures are cold. You can have a great day and only hit 5 or 6 greens for that reason. So you have to be creative. You have to be able to make putts. You have to, visualize these chips. You got to use a lot of different clubs when you chip. Sometimes it's a 7-iron, sometimes it's a 9-iron, sometimes it's a sandwich. So you got to be able to use all clubs in the bag. So you got to be creative around the greens, because of weather in the first place. So that's how you develop your skills around the greens. And I always promote, using different clubs. Don't just take one club. What people do is they park the cart over there, they take the sandwich and the putter, and that's what they try and chip with.
Right.
The bag is way over there. Well, I'll just use this club. And, it's so harmful to the results when you got this wedge, and the closest you can get it is maybe 15 feet because it's not a run.
Right. Okay.
And so I like to teach people to use the 7-iron, the 8-iron, the 9-iron, and hit a lot of shots on the chipping green and see what the trajectory of the club gives the ball, so that you can then program that in your mind, in your memory bank, and use that whenever you get on the golf course. Use the 7-iron, use the 8-iron, use the 9-iron, depending on where the flag is on the green. The flag's way at the back, you take a 7-iron and run it up all the way there. If the flag's on the front, yes, take maybe a pitching wedge or a 52, just to get the ball a little airborne, reach the green, and then run the rest of the way.
You mentioned having different shots and really working hard on your game. you're seeing the same guys that your coworkers, so to speak. You're seeing the same players from tournament to tournament. Do you ever find yourself practicing or playing practice rounds with the same players from week to week? Who are some of the guys when you're on the tour that maybe you spend a little bit more time with, maybe just on the putting green or chipping with? Any close relationships you had there?
The ordinary tournaments, you wouldn't try and play with anybody in particular, but the majors is where, we always we always were asked to make tee time preparations for the majors. And,
sure.
And there you would more try and play with different guys. British Opens, the South Africans would try and play together. Well, all of them, matter of fact. Go to the Masters and, Gary Player and Gary was always exempt. So when you get there, Ernie, myself, Gary, Nick Price, we'd play together. The British Opens, same thing. And I tried to play a lot of my practice rounds with Sevi as much as I could, because I thought he was,
of course,
he was the one I could learn things from, especially, around the greens. And I mean, the golf course was there for you to play. You knew what shots to hit off the tee. You knew all that stuff. But it's like, playing those bump and runs, playing those, the lob shots around Augusta. That's what I learned a lot from Sevi. I heard a story last week where somebody was telling the story where his son was asked, how did your father teach you? He said, watch. And he'd hit the shot, and then Sevi would say, you see, just like that. So he wouldn't say anything. He'd just demonstrate how to do it. And go, there you go, just do it like that.
Yeah, just do it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's up to you to try and emulate what he just did. So, you see this? Just do it like that.
Yeah, that's like Picasso. See, here's the painting. I just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever explain to Sevi, like, look, we're not Sevi? Yeah. Wow.
Well, I think back all those times that we did. He did try and teach me something at Augusta, and then I would think back. The reason why I couldn't do it is because I never did this or I never did that. And,
right.
And where's he now? I wish I could tell him, hey, I found the secret.
Yeah.
So, but he had a lot of tricks. He had a lot of tricks.
He had a lot of tricks, and also, he didn't shy away from getting into people's heads either. I mean, he definitely knew how to intimidate and knew how to get an advantage over players. So he's probably one of the last maybe the last masters of gamesmanship, so to speak. He
wasn't handed things on a silver platter. His mother worked a job, his father worked a job, his brothers worked hard. Once he got to where he was, great and had enough money, but that hunger always stayed inside him.
One of the things that Sevi was able to do and what he's really well known for is the Ryder Cup. Obviously, being from South Africa, you weren't going to be playing in that, but the President's Cup is something that was born in the early 90s. First edition was 94, and you played on that international squad where the President's Cup was held at Robert Trent Jones in Virginia. Can you remember when that started to take shape? I know that Greg Norman was a pretty big player in that, and as well as Nick Price. But when that was forming, kind of what were the thoughts between the players that were going to end up being on that international team? Were you excited for it, or was it a little bit unknown? What were your thoughts on the President's Cup?
Well, it was a wonderful sort of experience, being able to be part of a team event, which there was something like that I played in Europe. It's called the Hennessy Cup,
right,
where the rest of the world played. A couple of guys played the European, the British. But to be part of something as big as this, presented by the PGA Tour, and Ryder Cup is one thing, but the Ryder Cup is presented by the PGA of America, whereas here we were creating something that was part of the PGA Tour, and I think that kind of made the players feel more special because the tour was us and we were the tour. So, and the guys on the international team were guys that came to play a lot of PGA Tour events. So we didn't realize at the time how special it was, but yet it did have a bearing on us that this is us, this is our tour, and the fact that they got the presidents involved at the time, current and past presidents, it made the event carry so much more weight. I remember I got a picture with Byron Nelson and Gerald Ford standing on the tee behind me, and one of the afternoon matches that I was ready to tee off. So,
hard to beat
that kind of thing. You can't just spit at that idea, can you?
No, that's you can't beat that. You're you were one of two South Africans on the team. The other one being Fulton Alum. Fulton Alum is quite a character, at least from stories that I've heard. Is there a Fulton Alum story that you can share with us from the President's Cup?
He was a grinder, and he was a great player. One year he had lost his card. The tournament in Houston was rained out, so we came back in December and just had to play the tournament. But he and then he played the replacement tournament for the Houston Open and won it, which gave him an exemption for the next 2 years. So tough player, which was great to have as a match play guy on your team. Match players, we grew up playing match play in South Africa, especially at our club golf levels. And, I'm surprised we didn't do better in the Ryder Cup, in the President's Cup.
Obviously, you're playing here in the U.S., and it's just such a new experience in getting that going. So,
I did have my two singles. I halved with Scott Hook the first year, and second year I beat Kenny Perry 6-5. But he doesn't like to talk about that.
I would imagine not. It's so funny that you're on the Champions Tour now, and you're just. It's amazing how you're just able to recall all these numbers from back in. I mean, you're pulling out the spot you finished on the European Tour money list or the Order of Merit, and you're running into these guys that you had these battles with on the PGA Tour, and now you're seeing them again on the Champions Tour.
I remember listening to Bobby Locke when I just turned pro back in 80, 81, in 80. I'll play the amateur tournaments up there, and he would be around, and he would say, he would tell us stories like in 1941, I won the Leeds Open by 15 shots. So, I guess, it's just something that kind of happens when you have that time or that day or that person programmed in your mind, it'll pop up again.
Absolutely. You won 6 times in the Champions Tour. You're still out there, just grinding out every tournament, and just, is it the camaraderie with the guys, or, what keeps you so passionate and so competitive to play on this tour now? Obviously the courses aren't going to get shorter, and every year you got some rookie. I mean, I think Mickelson's going to be 50 next year. So who knows when he's going to pop up on that tour. What do you enjoy so much about this tour?
Well, first of all, the tour, the tournaments we play, they don't play it at 7,000 yards. So,
right.
Guys can still come out here, and, you can't hit the driver everywhere. So you got to maybe the 3-wood places. So a guy can compete with on that level, that the courses aren't that long. Now, when you go into the majors, that's all different. The courses are a bit tougher there. And you ask me what keeps you going. Well, you got this guy Langer,
Oh, yeah.
So you're thinking, well, he's 61, he can do this. Why can't I do that? And those things keep you, keep you going. So I feel I don't have anything wrong with me. I feel strong enough. So as long as I can keep fiddling with my golf shafts to find some magic, while the putter is still working, I didn't have my greatest year last year, so hopefully I can bounce back this year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the year.
That's awesome. You're, I think I heard that you're quite the Peloton guy. You spend a lot of time on the cycle, staying in shape. Is that part of your routine?
I do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
I've got a bike at home. I like to cycle in the mornings. I try and do 15 miles with a lot of intensity, about an hour, 45 minutes, 3-4 times a week. And then I have my own little home gym where I can do a lot of stretching and pulley work, a lot of band work, just to keep myself flexible. All of the above, you put a little bit of everything. I do a bit of everything. So I don't overdo it. I don't do heavy weights or things like that. But my flexibility is fine. My strength is fine. So
right.
I don't feel that I have any excuses.
You're talking about all the hard work you're doing, and you know, we just talked about the President's Cup in '94. You know, the one thing I do want to ask you about is, you know, you have plenty of other interests off the golf course. One of them is wine. So, you know, I'm sure people that are listening, when they go out to dinner, they may see a bottle of wine that has, you know, Nicklaus or Palmer or Faldo or Els or other golfers. But this was something that you pretty much started you were one of the first players to really put their name on a bottle of wine. And it wasn't just you lending your name to some other vineyard. This is really tied in close to your family's lineage. Can you speak to how Frost Wine actually started?
Yeah, I grew up on a grape farm where I actually used to hit golf balls in the vineyards because we lived about 8 miles from the nearest golf course. But I'd lose my golf balls during the plowing season because the sand was very soft then.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, my dad had a grape farm growing up, and about a mile from there is where my mother grew up. Her dad had his own farm in the 1930s. So, you know, that was kind of in my blood, was this industry that I grew up in. And then in '94, golf took me in that direction where I wasn't going to be into farming. But in '94, I purchased a winery in South Africa, and my first vintage came out in '97 that I produced at the vineyard. So that's when it started, and it's gone. You know, I'm not a big brand. I have one private label of my wine that I do for Trader Joe's. I got about 400 stores that I'm in, and we do a Sauvignon Blanc and a red blend for them, $7 and $8 a bottle. And then I have my estate wine that I market and sell through my website, frostwine.com. You can order wine there, and
Sure.
I can ship it to your house. So, yeah, I've enjoyed the wine. You know, gives me something to do. And the weeks that I'm off, my daughter runs the business for me, and it'll give me something to do after golf too, which is fun.
Yeah. No, that's and what was the reaction to the players? Did any of the players come to you for advice, or they come to you with questions? Because, like I said, you're one of the first to really start doing something like this. I know how guys on the PGA Tour, the Champions Tour, they have, they wear logos on their shirts and they have corporate sponsors. But this is almost like a entrepreneurial endeavor that you were going into. What were some of the reactions? Were people asking you questions about it, or how did that whole? I
do get a lot of questions today.
Okay.
And I'm playing with guys, and they go, "So how's my business doing?" And I'm like, "Well, it's doing great." We're in the middle of the round, and I don't really want to get into it right there.
Sure.
Because they're going to have a shot to play. I got a lot to talk about if I had the time. But I'll just briefly hit on, Trader Joe's has been great for me. We're doing 20,000 cases there, and my estate wine, we just found the direct-to-consumer route, so that's going great. And, what are the different varietals we make, Sauvignon, Shiraz, Cab, and a Pinotage. I'll touch on things like that, but, they don't really get into it. I bring some wine out at some of the tournaments where I have access to my warehouse, like in Chicago, and then I'll drop a bottle in everybody's locker.
Oh, nice!
And the guys will enjoy that. So, everybody is very supportive. A lot of guys, or a few guys, would ask me if I'm willing to donate a case of wine to their charity, and then they'll give me exposure that way. So, I must say I've had a lot of support from the players over the years, and again, it's good fun, It's nice to be able to crack up a bottle of wine during our tournaments and have some fun with it.
Of course. I'm not going to ask you who your drinking buddies are, but, a lot of people listening, what they do with their vacation is they go play golf. They get away from work, they go play golf, but golf is your profession. I'm curious, what does David Frost do on his vacation time? Where do you like to travel? What are some of the things that you like doing?
Vacation? What does that mean?
I know it's when you're not working. It's when you're not working. Like, what do you do when you're not working? Because
I do my wine stuff when I'm not working.
Okay.
I try and, when I'm home, I try and arrange to do wine dinners.
Nice.
I do a wine dinner at country clubs where between 5 and 6 I do a chip and putting clinic, and we'll serve some Sauvignon Blanc. We'll go indoors and we'll try the reds when I've sent the samples to the chef to pair some wine and food. So we'll strategize on that during my off weeks. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday I don't really play golf. I work on my fitness and then do the wine business, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday I might pick up a club here and there, but try and do a couple of those wine events in those weeks that I'm off. Our breaks are more November, December, where I go back to South Africa. There I'll spend time at the winery, come up with, making sure that everything is running smoothly for the year ahead. And then, we go to Mauritius, which is an island in Madagascar. We have a couple of events there on the European Senior Tour, so we'll go there for 3 weeks. 2 weeks we'll play, and then, maybe play a social round or two, but it's not really vacation time.
Yeah.
Yet.
You're not yet. You're busy doing stuff.
I've played so much professional golf over the years.
Right.
And made a lot of contacts, met a lot of great people. And there's always, I try and look on my database of people that I've met, come up with, strategize on different ways, to create, just other things. There's other business opportunities that I, am involved in a little bit.
I forgot to ask you about the Sun City Challenge. It's so interesting about that term is that the $1 million purse is basically just about the same as what the leading money winner would win on the PGA Tour for the entire year around that time.
So that was a great time because I would play all my golf overseas.
Right.
And then I remember Bay Hill in particular. I was going head to head with Payne Stewart. I think it was 87 when Payne Stewart won.
Yeah.
And, he was at home and, had a lot of support. Then what I was trying to say is I go to South Africa and then I got all the support again when the American guys came over there.
Of course.
So it was really special to have won in front of your home crowd. That you just can't buy that kind of enthusiasm, enjoyment, thrill,
Yeah, you're right. It was 1987, and
he shot 19 under. I was 17 under, and Dan Paul was third at 8 under.
That is amazing that you can remember that clearly. But yeah, you're right. Actually, wait a minute. Hold on. We might have a difference here. I think he was at 20 under. It says here 20, but you never know. It's right there.
You know what? Yeah, he birdied the last hole to go to 20. I had a 2-shot. He had a 2-shot lead playing 18. And I figured, in my brain, it was always, you can still bogey and I can birdie.
Right.
And he ended up birdieing. So I didn't give up hope, even though I played 18 and he won by 3. That's right. You're right.
That's wow.
But then he birdied the hole.
So I want to ask you about another close call. And I know you've spoken about this shot. It's probably one of your more famous shots in your career, but I know you probably know exactly where I'm going with this, but Greg Norman got clipped by a multitude of players. He got clipped by Larry Mize at the Masters, and he got, clipped by Nick Faldo. He got clipped by Bob Tway in the '86 PGA. But you clipped him with a hold bunker shot in '90 at the USF&G in New Orleans. It's a great bunker shot. But I guess my question is, golf is not like baseball or football or basketball where, a tough loss, you don't have to see that team for a month or 2 or 3 or whatever. But you got to see these guys the very following week in most cases. If you just turn and not even walk anywhere near Norman, or, when things like that happen to you or they happen to other people, is there just the unspoken rule of we just don't talk about that? Or is it just the opposite? It's like, hey, you got me last week, I'll get you this week.
Yeah, it's definitely like that. It's not... it's not like you trying to beat him and nail his ass to the coffin kind of thing,
Right.
You're playing the course. You're not playing the man. And, people don't see it that, you're playing the person. You're playing your own game. There's the hole. There's the shots. Throughout your career, there have been a lot of bad bounces rather than good bounces. And it's nice to get the good bounce occasionally. And, when you win, the good bounces go your way. So no, I don't think it's, I don't think it's like, you come into the next week and you're trying to avoid somebody. Gee, you're competitive. You're playing the field. You're not playing the person.
Right. Final question, unless you have some other question I should ask you, but I was going to ask you.
No, it's something I just thought about now, but I thought about it on the weekend.
Okay.
You remember, I don't know if you watched the golf this weekend where Dustin Johnson got a drop because he was dead up against a tree, but his foot was on the cart path, although he was playing away from the hole.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking. Yeah, so he was basically stymied right behind that tree, and if he, so I'm assuming what you're getting at is that if he was going to hit that shot sideways, he would not have had his foot on the path, but instead he put his foot on the path so that he would get the drop.
Yeah, he couldn't go sideways; he had to go backwards, and his foot was on the path, so he got a drop.
Right.
Now, you need to go to YouTube. David Frost, Ruding, Carnoustie, 1999. On the second hole, I've hit this horrific pull, and I eventually find my ball, but it's about 2 feet below the surface of the road, which is right adjacent to me, right behind me. But because the ball is so low down, and there's no shot to the fairway, I've got to what I'm trying to do is chip it onto this road. But I called an official over and asked him if I chip this ball onto the road, do I get a drop? He said yes. Because there was a nice bare piece to the left of the road where I could then drop it.
Right.
So as I went down to play the shot, I couldn't reach the ball. So I had to sort of widen my stance to get my shoulders all the way down, if you know what I'm doing.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I've got my foot on the path. So I said, do I get a drop because my foot is on the path? He said to me, no. I said, why not? He said, because you're taking an abnormal stance. I said, but I've got an abnormal eye. I can't just stand with my feet normal width. I would never get down to the ball. So I have to stand wider for me to get all the way down there.
Right.
And he goes, no, you cannot have a drop. So, I asked for a second opinion, and the guy wouldn't give it to me either. So I proceeded to hit the ball, like I demonstrated, onto the path, and then they gave me a drop. So about on the way back in the plane, one of the PGA Tour officials, that was the RNA official that came to me.
Right.
The PGA Tour official, Ben Nelson, came to me and said, hey, I went to the RNA guy and I said to him, look, if the pro tells you, this is his best effort to play this shot, then you're not there to really argue with him unless, you see it's not the way he has no other option. If he did have another option, fine. Actually, a couple hours later, Rory McIlroy had the same thing. And the official did not give him a drop. And you can see that on the replay as well. And there, Rory was taking a chance where he tried to stand a little wider than he should have. But I had no choice. So go and YouTube that.
It's an official, at least my understanding, an official isn't there to, they shouldn't be there to, they're trying to guard you from accidentally breaking a rule. They're not, they should, I mean, that shouldn't be they're not trying to get you. They should be trying to, be,
I've had a similar situation at the TPC Sawgrass, Jacksonville. I pulled my drive on 16, the par 5. There was a cart path. Left of the cart path was a tree. My ball was between the cart path and the tree, and I was going to have to play a left-handed 5-iron through this gap. That's the only shot I had. And I said to the official, and he said, sure, take a drop. If that's your intention, you can go ahead and take a drop. So I took a drop, and I played it right-handed.
Let me see. I was going to ask you this. So you've had this storied career. You've won all over the world over 30 times on multiple tours. I always kind of like to ask this question. What do you tell a 21-year-old David Frost if you can talk to him right now? Any advice you'd give a David Frost at 21 years old?
Definitely learn as much as I can from other golfers. Go look at the guys that are successful. Don't necessarily copy them,
right.
but just look at their tenacity and their commitment, willpower, and just grind away, and work hard. That's all I had. And, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I my parents didn't have money growing up. But I had everything I needed. I didn't have more than I needed.
Right.
I don't think kids need to be spoiled, but, they need to grind it out a bit, suffer a little bit. Don't read too much in the press. My dad used to hide all articles away from me because you don't need that attention in that way and put pressure on yourself. Just go about your business, get it, tee it up, hit it down the fairway, make your putts, and come back the next day. Don't try and get into the mental side of the game too much.
I do appreciate you joining us here at the Back of the Range. Really good luck to you in Arizona and the rest of the year on the Champions Tour.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And for those people that are out there that I've been lucky enough to meet, and the fans that I've been around, so I enjoy your support, and thanks for following the game of golf and making me feel special.
And there you have it. Special thanks to David Frost for joining us for this special bonus episode. Going to definitely follow him the rest of the season. Wish him lots of luck. A lot of good luck mojo out there on the Champions Tour. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'll see you next time for the 75th episode of the Back of the Range Golf Podcast.